Hello there my friends, hope you all are having a fantastic day right now. In this video, we shall be looking at object-oriented programming in Python, which means we will be looking at classes and objects in Python. So let's get started. If you are wondering why I'm not in the Python application, then that is because the concept of classes and objects is a very important concept and needs to be understood very well. And so I thought we can consider a scenario and understand how this works. So the scenario that we are going to be looking at is as follows. Let's consider that there is an architect and this architect is approached by the planning commission and they want the architect to draw plans for two houses in a street, but the houses should not be identical either. So there should be some minor outside changes, but the basic plan of the houses should be the same. So when given a certain constraint like this, the architect can do two things. He can either draw the plans of both the houses separately, which means he will need to draw two plans, or he can make a single plan and just change the properties for the two houses. And property here refers to the material used to build the house or color that is given to the house or something like that. And the path that the architect would choose would obviously be the second path where he would draw the plan for one house and just extend it to both the houses. And that's what classes are all about. And to understand this better, I made a similar scenario in Minecraft. So as you can see, I've made two houses right here, and these two houses have the same plan, but they are constructed using different materials, and these materials can serve as the properties that need to be changed. So this would give us a clear idea about how the architect would go about his work. And now let's come to the point again. So we are talking about classes and objects. So here, the common plan that the architect would draw is a class. So you could think of a class as a blueprint and the objects as the instances of the class. So the objects inherit the properties from the class and make their own changes and are different. So in this case, if you see these two houses right here, this one is built using oak and the roof is built using spruce, and this house is built using birch and the roof is built using jungle stairs. This is where the concept of objects comes into picture. So you could imagine these two separate houses as two objects of the same class or two instances of the same class. So that's how classes and objects work. And here by properties, we are referring to the materials using which these two houses are being built. So that is the only differentiating factor between these two houses. So let's keep that in mind because we would require that at a later point. So let's go back to Python now. So now that we are in Python, we can start writing our own class to help this architect guy. So first we'll call the class as the house blueprint. So this is how you do it. House blueprint. So this is our class name and we use the keyword class to define a class. And after this, we include the colon, which is a part of the syntax. Next, we have some stuff to do inside this class. And we talked a lot about the properties of a class and what are actually properties when we talk in programming terms. So the properties are the variables and the functions which are present inside the class. So a class has both variables and functions which are referred to as the members of a class. And if we look at this from the perspective of the example which we saw, then the variables would be the materials and the functions would be the operation of building the houses. So that's what they would represent in our example. And in this case, a function cannot be building a house but printing out something to the screen. Let's write the code so that we understand better. So I'm going to have two variables, and these two variables are the material used to build the walls of the house and the material used to build the roof of the house. So now let's assign these variables with strings. So if you observe here, this first house has walls made of birch and the roof is made of jungle wood. So that's what we would be assigning to the variables back in our class. The walls were made of birch, so we assigned the string birch to this, and the roof was made of jungle. So these are our member variables or the variables of this class. Now we can move on to writing the functions of this class. And the first function is going to be called, and this function is going to take one argument which is called self, and self is a default argument that all functions of a class must contain. So if you do not write self here, then that would be wrong, because self indicates that this function belongs to this class and it cannot be used elsewhere. So that's mandatory. So now we can write our print statement inside this function. So print build the walls using self dot material walls. So yep, that's it. So let me explain this quickly. Now why did I write this variable as self dot material walls? The reason is because this variable right here is associated with this class and is not a global variable, which means you can't use it elsewhere. And to indicate that, we use self, the keyword self. And now let me copy this and paste it over here. So let's change it, roof. And again, self is a default argument, and build the roof using self dot material roof. So this works similarly, and that completes our class. So our class now has member variables called material walls and material roof, and it has two functions called build wall and build roof. So now it's time to create our object. An object is a variable which inherits the properties from a class. So let's call our object birch house, since that is the first house which we saw. So we are assigning this object with the class, and the class is house blueprint. We are supposed to include the brackets as well, and that is there to pass the arguments, but we are not passing any arguments as of now, so we'll leave it at that. And now it's time for us to access the functions or the properties of birch house. So first, the architect will want to instruct the builder to build the walls, so we'll just write birch house dot, and that is how you access the properties of an object. So birch house dot build wall, and it takes no arguments, and this self is not an argument that you will pass into this function, but it's just an argument to indicate that the function belongs to this class. Next, we would want to instruct the builder to build the roof. So build roof. So we have now got our object, and we are also accessing the functions of the object. So let's see how this works, and let's run our program. So here we have the two strings, build the walls using birch and build the roof using jungle. So that's what we saw in the first house, and that's how it works. This is how the architect can have a single blueprint and extend it to both the houses. And what if he wants the second house? So now we have the second house, and as you can see, the walls are built using oak and the roof is built using spruce. So we have got the material walls variable and the material roof variable. So let's include that in our class. So here we'll change this birch to oak as we saw right now, and the roof to spruce. So now we want to have a new object, so let's get rid of this and create our new object. So we'll call it oak house. So oak house is again going to use this same class called house blueprint. So we just write house blueprint, and the brackets, and now we'll access the functions of this object. So oakhouse dot build wall, and that's it. It doesn't take any arguments. And oakhouse dot build roof. Yep, that's it. So now we can run our program and we see build the walls using oak and build the roof using spruce. And that has eliminated the need to make two plans. So instead of writing these set of statements twice, we have written it once and used it for different objects. So I guess that gave a clear sense of how classes and objects can be used to increase the readability of our code. And in the next video, we'll be continuing with this and look at how to make them even more flexible such that we can create multiple objects in the same code. So that will be covered in the next video, and I guess I'll have to end this video here. So bye for now guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.